services in to the machine. What we need is three-phase electric, three-phase neutral and earth, and we need a compressed air supply. Basically, the compressed air supply just goes into there. It's an 8mm push fit fitting. The three-phase electricity comes into here, or if you prefer to put a hole in the top and come in from the top, that's up to you or your electrician. When the power comes in, we route it through the trunking, and we have line 1, line 2, line 3 and neutral. We connect to there, and then we connect to the earth. An overview of how the machine works and how the toffee flows through it. We start by putting the batch in the batch roller. The batch is heated, which is controlled on here, and we get the batch to a temperature that will keep the batch pliable. We feed the batch into the in-feed rollers, which will give the rope that will be fed into the cut and wrap machine. This machine is variable speed, and we can adjust the size of the rope, the diameter of the rope, by using them controls there. We have a rope sensor here. When the rope goes through the machine, we want it to snake, and when the snake touches the sensor, this machine will pause, and then when the snake straightens up, the machine will start again. And what this does, it stops the rope stretching, so all the candies are the same size. The rope then goes into the machine and is transported through the machine by these two rollers, which have to be set to the correct size, and that is done by using these adjustments here, which we'll go into more detail later on in this video. As the rope's coming in, it passes this sensor, and this sensor will trigger the paper feed and start to pull papers. The rolls of film go on the machine here and are threaded up like they are on the machine here. Again, we'll go on to this in more detail later. The machine is then cut by the toffee blades. These are the candy blades here, which will cut the candy. And when the candy is cut, this arm here will transfer the candy into the wrapping film that has been cut and into the wrapping wheel, which will do the folds on the piece. The wrapping wheel will then transport the candy round to the twister section, where it will be twisted. We also have a heater here which heats this back plate and seals the film around the candy where the film overlaps. Then the candy is ejected at the 5 o'clock position and will go into your collection bucket down the chute. And that is a brief overview of how the machine works. The controls for the machine. When you turn on the machine, the touch screen will start to load. When it loads, this is the screen you'll see. And we have the speed, which when you're running the machine, the speed will register there. If we want to adjust the speed, we adjust it by the speed adjustment there. The paper length we set by typing in what you want in there and then press enter, and that does your paper feed. The output is the amount of products it has cut and wrapped, and if we want to reset that after a shift, we just press the reset. We have mark on or off, and this is your print registration, and this will register the film so that the logo will go into the center of the product. We'll go more into detail on that later in the video. Above that, we have a heater control which seals the wrap when it's just before it's twisted. It seals the wrap where the papers overlap, and basically we can turn this on and off just by pressing the button there. These two buttons here, we don't need to go into there. That's sort of not for the operator. Everything in the machine is set for the way you will work it, so nothing in there needs to be changed. Here we have a start and a stop button for the machine, and we also have an emergency stop, which once pressed you need to twist it to release it. We also have a second e-stop which is there. Again, you have to twist it to disengage it. There is also an isolator here, which when the power goes into the machine, the isolator will isolate the power from everything. The in-feed section of the machine. We'll just go into a little bit more detail on how the in-feed section works. We open this door, this big door, by undoing that. Then the door will open, so we can see what goes on in here. So we've got the candy that comes in here. These are the wheels that size the candy, and we've got two at the beginning, two at the end. And if we need to make them a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, we do it by adjusting this here. We have some lock nuts underneath which we undo, and we just turn it and we can make it higher or lower. When you get the machine will come set, so you shouldn't have to touch these. This is very critical, that when the machine is being used, that this is set for the piece size, bang on. If you're putting a piece through that's too small, you will not get a good wrap, because the piece of candy won't fill the grippers in the wrapping wheel. So it's imperative that you have the candy at the right size. Now, the size you will have given us, so you can measure the size and put some candy through the machine without any wrapping, and when the blocks come out the end, you can measure them, and if they're a little bit small or a little bit big, you just adjust them by these wheels. But you have to take into account that the piece may shrink as it goes through the machine. Now this is it's not a machine issue, it's to do with recipe. So you have to measure the block as fast as you can before any shrinkage can take place. Also on the in-feed section, we have a little limit switch here that will stop the machine if the candy gets jammed up. The knife is at this point here and is cutting the candy like that, and sometimes you will get a jam up there and this will get compacted with candy. If that happens, the candy will actually push up this limit switch here and it will stop the machine. So if your machine stops, just take a look here and see if you can see any candy and clean it out. If that happens, it usually means that you've got too much candy going into the machine, so you may have to put the rollers down a little bit. Now, when you're running the machine and the candy rope is going in the machine, sometimes you may see the candy start to rise here and it snakes upwards. Now, if it does that, we need to reduce the height of this wheel, as we're obviously feeding too much candy in, and this can't take it away. So we need to feed just enough candy in to allow this wheel to take it away. So any snake in here, and we reduce the height of this roller. On the other hand, if we have got too less of a, if it's stretching it in any way, then we need to lift this up and allow a bit more candy to come through. Now, when we've finished the batch, we get a little piece of candy that is on a dead spot at the end here, because we've nothing to drive this piece of candy here through into the transfer section of the machine. So we have to get this out. So I'll just shut the doors so we can sort of see it how it is in position. There will be a guard over here, and the guard switches are at the moment taped up, but this will have a guard over it which hinges back. Now, to get the slug out, we push this down here and lift that up there, and then we can just get our fingers in and take the piece away. The machine can't start because we've lifted this guard switch up here, so there's no problem with the machine starting. When we do that, we have to make sure the toffee knives, which are here, are in the cut position, because sometimes if the knives are in the open position, this will actually catch it. When we've got the piece out, we put that back. This one also will lift up if needed, but you very rarely need that one to come up. One additional point about the film is that we have two reel holders. Two reasons for this. One is you will have a roll of film on there, and as that's running through and it's about to run out, you can have your second roll on there. So as soon as that one has run out or is about to run out, you can basically cut the film and sellotape one to the other and then carry on, and that will take you about 15 seconds to do that. So you only get a 15-second delay in changing the roll, and then you put another roll on here which is ready for when the far roll runs out. That's one reason we do it. The other reason is you may want an inner and an outer wrap. If we are doing a product that's sticky and we want to give it some protection in the wrapper, we can put a narrow wax paper roll on there and we thread it through, and then we come to here and then down into the machine. So when it wraps it, the wax paper band will go all the way around the product, but the outer wrap will stay the same and will twist as normal. Now we'll have a look at the machine transfer. So if we open the door here and we have a closer look at this part here, I will just turn the machine by hand with the hand wheel. We'll see the blades cut the candy, and then behind the blades we can see a transfer arm just coming through now. See there, just coming through now, and that will push the cut candy through the wrapping paper, which we'll go into in a second, and into the wrapping wheel, which is at this point here. And at this point, the block of candy will be folded with the film. The important thing here is the blades, when they go into the cut position, which is there, if you imagine a pair of scissors, when you cut with a pair of scissors, the two blades pass each other quite considerably. But with this, we only want the blades just to cut the candy. Now, if the blades pass each other quite a lot, will cause friction and the blades will get hotter and hotter, and then we'll end up with candy sticking to the blades. So we just want the blades just to slightly overlap. And in some cases, depending on the candy, we can basically have the blades just coming together but with no overlap. Now, that depends very much on your candy. Now, if we need to adjust these, we adjust it by loosening these, which will allow the blade to move pretty easily. But with this collar here, we have a pin underneath it, which limits how far you can adjust it. So when you get it, this will be set to the right position. And if you loosen these, you can't lose your position, because when you move it, you will hit that pin at the bottom. Now, if the blades won't cut and maintenance say you need to do something with the blades, and maybe you need the blades to go a little bit further into each other, you would just alter the position of this one here and lock it up. And then if any operators are on the job, they don't touch this. But once the blades are set, they're usually set and you don't need to move them. To change the actual blades themselves, we just remove these screws here, and we have screws here which you can access where the bolt heads are on the other side, but we would take the full unit off, do it on the bench, and we would just take the old blades off and put the new blades on. Again, if this collar is set in the correct position, it's very simple just to put them on, put them against the pin, and you're in position. Wrapping film and how we thread it through the machine and how it operates. Normally the machine would work with a twistable film, which is a special film because most plastic films are actually heat sealable, that you see on bags of crisps and Twix and Snicker bars. They're all heat sealable films. This film is a no memory twist film. It's readily available from stockists of wrapping films, but you do need to make sure it is a twist grade film. If you're using a fold wrap machine, you would probably be using a wax paper or a material that has dead fold qualities, so that when folds are made, the folds stay in position. The wax paper also is sealed by heating the wax folds, and then the wax sticks together. In this case, twist wrapping, we're using a twistable clear film. You can use a logo on the film, and we have a print registration unit there that will look at the eye marks on the film and keep the logo in the centre. To turn that system on, you have in the panel here, it says mark, off and on, and basically you put the exact length of the distance between the eye marks on the film, you measure that and you put that as your paper length, and then the machine will do your rest. It will do the rest. We thread the machine up, we put the roll on the machine, and we thread the machine up, which is detailed in the manual. Put that back, just put that forward and it locks it. If we haven't got the reach, we just pull that back, gives you a little bit more reach. When the film's going through the machine, we obviously want the film in the centre. So to centralise the film, finally we use this, which will move it this way or that way. If we need to change the position of the film more than that, we undo the Allen screw there and we move this plate one way or the other, whichever way we need it, and this will self-center on its own to that position. When the machine is running and the momentum means that the roll is constantly going round, if we should suddenly stop, that roll would in effect keep turning, a flywheel effect. To stop that, we have a brake here. We look here, we have a brake pad that runs on that drum, and that is operated by the way the film is threaded up. When it is pulled, it actually pulls this brake lever and undoes the brake at the top. But as soon as we're not pulling the film, it puts the brake on and stops it onwardly rolling, and the film just freewheeling. So we've got the film threaded up to this section here. Again, there is the track in the manual that will show you that. When we've got the film to this point, we have to thread it into the working part of the machine. Now we have a lever here, and when we press this lever, what it will do, it will lift this rubber roller backwards. The rubber roller and the roller behind it are the drive for the film feed. Now this is controlled by the servo motor, which takes note of that film length in there and transfers it to the rubber roller and delivers the correct amount. So to put the film on, we disengage the rubber roller, so we've got a gap in between the two rollers to get the film through. This is a bit fiddly at first. We push the film through like that. Now we can see the film has gone through, and we see that, and it's gone past the knife. This is your cutting knife here, and that's your blade here. And we have two sections to the blade. We have a rotary blade here, which turns round each revolution for it to form a paper. And at the back of that, we have the anvil. Now, when we put it in the paper and we've got the rubber roller back in position, we're basically ready to go. But I'm just going to cut, I'm going to turn the machine by hand and just let you see that knife cut the paper. And that's how the paper is cut. Now, when this machine is working at maximum capacity, which is at 450 pieces per minute, which is not recommended for every product because all products are different and have different consistencies, etc. So running speed depends on product. But when it is running at very high speed, that blade is turning around and doing a lot of work very quickly. So everything has to be positioned correctly. Any pieces of candy that have fallen into this track here and left overnight and have gone sticky will cause quite serious problems, because if the wrapping paper starts to stick to the candy on the machine, it's a little bit of a nightmare. So always make sure this section of the machine is nice and clean. To take this off, we turn this handle here and we take this Allen screw out here, which will remove the rubber roller, and then we can jiggle this section out and you can see all the back plate and you can give it a clean. But if you have an air gun and at the end of production every day you go over with an air gun, same on the in-feed roller and all the machine, that cleans a lot of the little debris up that will cause these issues. Another thing we have on the machine is we have a paper feed air assist. Now what this does, when your paper's in position, it puts a flow of air over the paper that helps the paper feed through, keeps it in a nice position. So you need some compressed air to that, which goes onto there, and you don't need a lot of air. It's a very small amount, and it just creates a positive draft. Again, we have the sensor here, which is controlling when the wrapping paper should start to be fed. If you run the machine with no product, no wrapping film will come out, but then when you put product in the machine and the rope passes under there, it will trigger the machine to start feeding film when the candy is in the transfer position. Right, so you've seen the diagrams now, so you should have an understanding of how the film needs to be when it's transferred into the wrapping wheel. Now we'll just have a look at the wrapping wheel, and I'll just hand turn it so you can see what goes on in there. Basically, the machine at this point is being transferred into the wrapping wheel. So you will see in a minute, you will see the grippers close on the candy. Don't know whether you saw that. Just do it once more. Candy's coming in and the grippers are starting to close. They grip the candy and they hold the film in position. Now this is where it's critical you've got the block size correct, because if you've got a block size that's too small, the grippers won't grip the block of candy. So the wrapping film is free to do what it wants. It's not under control. So having the blocks the correct size will make sure that the machine is in control of the film being gripped. So we close it. See it close again. There it goes. It will be gripping it. Now if we look, we have a folder here, which is the first fold, which will come up and fold the paper as described in the diagrams. And then as soon as that one's been pushed up, the wrapping wheel will start to move up, and the back plate here is your second fold, which will fold that over the first fold. Now the folds at this point are in control because they're close up to this wrapping wheel guard. Now as this wrapping wheel guard goes round, as the wrapping wheel goes round, the wrapping wheel guard gets hotter and hotter, and when we're at this point here, we are actually welding the film, the two overlapped folds, we are now welding them together. The machine goes on. Remember, the machine is going very fast, so this is happening instantly. We're now going to twist the film. So we've wrapped the film around the product, and in effect we've put a tube around that product. Now at this point here, we're going to grip the tube, squeeze it, and we're going to twist it. Now when we twist it, the twisters have to move in to touch, well, the twisters have to move in toward the wrapping wheel, because the twist is actually tightening everything up. So we have to follow the tightness of the twist into the wrapping wheel. I hope that makes sense. Then the twisters will open up and they'll be ejected at the 5 a.m. position. And the candy will go down the chute and into a tray or conveyor or whatever system you have in place. We can see the twist there, how the twist is nice and tight. And to sort of try and explain the run up, how the twisters move in, we can see that when you twist it, it actually needs to move in. So if the twisters were stationary and you tried to twist it and they didn't move in, it would actually rip the film and rip the twist off. So we have to have the run up working. Now these twisters, these twister barrels, we have two, one here and one on that side. By undoing this here, and we have another one just behind the door there, by loosening them and turning this big nut here, we can actually move the twisters in and out. So there is some adjustment there. So we can do that. And we can also, if we take this, these are things that you won't need to do day to day, and when you get the machine it'll be set anyway, so you shouldn't need to really touch them. But if you take that one out, this cover off here, and there's one in the back of the machine for the inboard twister, you will see there's an adjustment in here which will actually adjust the amount of run up you get. The heater is controlled on the touch screen, and we have it there. We just put the set value in, what we want it to do. In this instance it's 250, but that depends on what film you're using. We put the figure in and just press enter and give it a little bit of time, and the heaters will climb to that temperature. We have a little thing here. This basically just comes in and holds the candy in the wrapping wheel grippers, so it's held at 4 sides, so that when it twists it, the product can't get twisted out of the pocket. When we transfer the cut candy into the film, it is very important that the film is in the right position and orientation. Now the best way for me to explain this to you is with diagrams. So I'll just go through a few diagrams with you. Maintaining the machine, periodically we need to check the oil levels, and the main oil levels we have are in here, which we just take these bolts off, lift the top off, and we can see what's happening inside. And what we need to do is just put some oil in to cover the first gear. That's it in there. We can see a level here, and when that is covered and the machine is running, that gear that is submerged in the oil will splash oil all around the other parts in this particular gearbox. So don't think you need to fill it to the top, you don't. It only needs to just cover 10 mil, 15 mil of the lowest gear. The same in here. If we take this panel off here, we will see the oil again just submerge the bottom gear, and a level there as well. We have that one too. Do the same with that, and then The main gearbox is accessed through removing these two Allen screws here, and the door will open up and we can see all the internal workings. We have a sump at the bottom with an oil pump in there. We want to cover the oil pump with oil. When the machine is running, it will lift up the oil to the top of the machine and it drops it on the gears that are turning, on some of the gears that are turning, which in effect splashes it all around the rest of the gears. That's a visual check in there, so when you want to check the oil there, just open it, visual check. You may have to seal these boxes back up, basically a little bit of silicone, and run a bead all the way around and then close it up. Cleaning the machine. After the shift, you will probably find you've got some debris on the floor of the machine here. You've got some papers that have come from wherever. It does happen. Basically, get a brush, open the guards and everything so the machine won't start, turn the power off at the isolator around the back, and then get a brush it out. When you've brushed the main bits off, get the air gun and blow it down, blow all your debris away from everywhere. And then anything left, get some hot soapy water and a cloth, put the cloth in the soapy water, wring it out somewhat, and then wipe it all down. Make sure the machine is not covered in water. Once you've wiped it all over, get a dry cloth, dry it all off, and then it is ready for cleaning. It's ready for production in the morning. You can remove areas such as this, which we discussed before, to get into there to make sure there's no debris in there. But if you keep it tidy as you're running, you shouldn't have anything under there. But you can see under it and get the air gun there to clear everything out. The machine does not like being sticky, and stickiness causes most of the problems on a machine. Very important to maintenance is the cleaning of the machine, which should be done after every shift. If the machine is clean and dry, everything will work better than if the machine is just a mess of sticky toffee. Now, all the bearings are sealed bearings, so they're obviously maintenance free. There's no harm putting a little bit of light oil on some of the moving parts. We do have items where we have some roller bearings running on cams, and we can just spray a little bit of lubricant in there and that will lubricate that. One point for maintenance is the paper length is controlled by a sensor which is under this cover. Now it's an optical sensor and sometimes it may get dirty, so just take that out and just check the sensors free and clear of any rubbish. We have some gears in this housing here, which are the gears for the length of the candy. Basically just put some grease on that periodically and a little bit of in these holes here, which are, this is the sort of clutch that disengages when the door's open, and when we close the door and the machine starts turning, it locates in the two holes and puts the timing in the right position. Just check, basically common sense maintenance, make sure everything is checked periodically. Ta-da.